This is a Chiappa Triple Magnum 12 gauge. It is a very different design than anything that I've ever shot before, and it's pretty much different than anything else you'll see. It is chambered all the way up to 3.5, and I have shot 3.5 out of it. As you could expect, considering that there is no action to take up any of the recoil of your 3.5 Magnum, there is a good deal of kick from 3.5. However, because the gun is 8.5 pounds or 8.6 pounds, it's not that bad, the kick of even a turkey load Magnum. And it seems as if it actually would be a fairly good waterfowl gun. I've skeet shot with it now. Shot 70 rounds through it yesterday. The day after I got it. My dad bought it Thursday. Today is Saturday. So really, I'm really glad to be able to shoot it. It's a really, really interesting gun, and on initial first look, it does seem like something that would not be practical. Seems like, oh, it's gonna be too heavy, it's not gonna aim right. But honestly, I mean, for me at least, it is not too heavy and it aims really, really well. Basically, if you're accustomed to shooting an over and under shotgun, this will feel fairly second nature for you. And my second concern that I had about the gun, other than the potential of it being too heavy, was, are the barrels going to be regulated properly? In other words, are all three barrels going to shoot to the same point? And I'm here to say, yeah, they do. They do. All three point to the exact same point. I have a Mossberg 935 that I've shot for years and duck hunted with for years and shot a lot of skeet with as well. And first day shooting this, I was shooting skeet better than with my Mossberg 935, and I gotta say it's definitely one hell of a gun, because I love my Mossberg 935. It's a really, really good gun, but this, I don't know, there's just something about it that. And as you can see from viewing down the gun, it is three barrels. Basically, it's like if you had a side-by-side and then you had one barrel on top, which is probably the most, I mean, it seems to me like the best way to make a triple barrel shotgun. And here's the view down the chamber. It has a separate choke for all three barrels, and that's one thing that is kind of a slight inconvenience, because if you have to buy one choke for your gun, that's one price. But if you're buying three chokes for one gun, obviously you're spending more money on chokes than if you had a single barrel or a double barrel. And that's one negative. That's one downfall of the gun. But you also have to take into consideration the fact that the only thing that can go wrong with this gun is the trigger mechanism. If you have a semi-auto, then it can jam while you're shooting. But unless the trigger malfunctions and doesn't hit the round, there's nothing to stop it from firing. So you should, realistically speaking, have basically no misfires. I mean, you can't say that. You can't say with any gun that you're never going to have a misfire, but with this, it seems fairly unlikely that you're going to have a misfire. It's definitely a good design for reliability, considering that if you're familiar with shooting over and unders or double barrel shotguns, then you probably know it's not very common to ever see a misfire out of a well-made over and under shotgun or double barrel shotgun. So from that perspective, it's actually a pretty reasonable gun if you're thinking about, I want 3 shots like you get with waterfowl, because that's the federal limit on the amount of shots that you have for hunting a waterfowl. Anybody that's watching this that hunts waterfowl, I'm sure, is already familiar with that. That's why you have to put a plug in your semi-auto if you're hunting, because usually a semi-auto holds 5, but it can only hold 3 if you're going to be hunting any type of waterfowl. So that's one very reasonable aspect of this gun. And another thing to think about is, if you're going to wherever it is that you hunt ducks or geese or any waterfowl, and you stop by a game warden and they ask to check your plug, well, they don't even have to check your plug. Like, you could just break open your gun and it has 3 barrels. So obviously you can't shoot more than 3 times at once. And that's definitely a very reasonable aspect of the design. Here's the view down the gun. There's a red dot sight at the end of the gun, and it's hard to see on camera just looking down the barrel, but it's a pretty effective red dot sight. It sighted well for me. It's similar feeling to the Mossberg red dot at the end of my Mossberg 935, and I think it would be good in low light situations. It's pretty natural to look down the barrel. It's not as odd as you might think it would be just looking at it online. I thought it was going to be ridiculous until I held it in the store and saw that it's not actually that heavy, and that looking down it is pretty similar to looking down a single barrel semi-auto or pump, or looking down a over and under. This is my Chiappa Triple Magnum beside my Mossberg 935, and as you can see, the Mossberg 935 is actually a longer gun. That seems like it wouldn't be the case, considering that this Mossberg 935 is a 26-inch barrel, and the Chiappa actually has a 28-inch barrel, or at least this model does. So that's one thing that might surprise you just looking at it online and not seeing it in person. But if you take into account that this doesn't have an action, it just has a backstop basically for the bullet, instead of having a full action like you have to on a semi-auto. And it makes perfect sense once you start thinking about it, because the bolt has to travel from there to there. So that takes up a good portion of the gun right there, because this, from around here to right here, you're just using for the sake of cycling rounds through. And it makes the gun somewhat longer. I will, however, say this Mossberg is 7.5 pounds. So this Mossberg is lighter than the Chiappa. It still isn't that heavy of a gun though. It's 8.5 pounds, which it may be too heavy for some people out there. I like it, but I'm 6'5". I'm a pretty large person, so maybe for some smaller shooters it's not the best option, because you could get tired carrying it for a long time, because it's a relatively heavy gun. But it works out good for me. Here's a view down the barrel. You can see the chokes, and you can see how the end of the barrel looks. They're Remington style chokes, and I believe it comes with, I think it's a modified and then a skeet and improved that it comes with in the end of the gun. I'm not sure. I could check that and put it in the description. But as I was saying, it is going to be more expensive to buy 3 chokes than just to buy 1 or 2 chokes, which is the potential downfall of the gun. I also I've put this limb saver on the back of mine. I took it off to compare the lengths of the two guns, but it helps with the recoil, obviously, as it's designed to, but in addition to that, just because of my height and the length of my arms, I prefer to have that extra inch on the back of the gun. It makes it a little more comfortable for me to hold. Here's some rounds I was shooting yesterday. This is a nitro turkey. I shot through it just to see how it would feel, and this is what I was shooting skeet with, just a 7.5 target load. That handled both of them just fine. Which, I mean, that's true. This 935 too. It'll chamber either of these. But as I was saying, sometimes it doesn't cycle through properly, and then you can't fire. And if you're duck hunting, then that can be a pretty serious issue. These are the two chokes that it came with. I think it's a full and an improved modified. As I said, they're Remington style chokes. Here's me sliding these two spent shells into the gun. You see they sit flush. It chambers a 3.5 just fine, and it chambers the 2 3/4 target load just fine, obviously. And the shot order that it fires in is this chamber, and this chamber. It's clockwise, basically. You go from the right lower barrel to the left lower barrel and then the top. And there's no way to change it. There's not a switch like there are in most over and unders where you can adjust it from top shooting first to bottom shooting first. This is the way it's going to shoot. There's not a way to adjust it, but just clockwise. So now I'm going to show you some video of yesterday when I was shooting skeet with this gun.
Yeah.